Peace, 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 peace. It's Monday, and you already know what today's day is. It's Black Leaders, Past, Present, and Future. Today we're going to be talking about John H. Johnson. Um, let's get into it. Um, John H. Johnson began a life in poverty and worked his way up the economic ladder to become a wealthy businessman of international reputation. Founder of Johnson Publishing Company and such spin-offs as Ebony Fashion Fair and Ebony Cosmetics. He was the first successful black publisher to emerge after World War II. Among his publications are Ebony Magazine, the most widely circulated and most popular black magazine, which continuously works to eradicate old stereotypes and replace them with the positive black images. Through Johnson's leadership, Johnson Publishing Company consistently has been ranked amongst the nation leading black businesses. John H. Johnson was born in a tin-roof shotgun house in Arkansas City, a mill town in rural Arkansas, on January 19, 1918. His mother, and I don't want to say her name wrong, so I'm going to spell it Gertrude Johnson, was married first to Richard Lewis and had a daughter, Beulah. After the marriage failed, she married Leroy Johnson, John's father. After Johnson's father died in a sand mill accident when he was 8, his mother married James Williams. Johnson himself married Eunice Walker on June 21st, 1941. The couple later had 2 children and adopted a daughter. Johnson was educated in Arkansas City Colored School. Graduated in June 1932. The city offered no public high school. Since the family was poor, Johnson could not follow the traditional black option of attending boarding school in Pine Bluff, Little Rock. When she was certain that the family was financially unable to move to Chicago, where Johnson could enter high school, Gertrude Johnson Williams made her son repeat the 8th grade rather than run wild on the streets or continue with manual work. He was advised that he would repeat the grade as many times as necessary until they had enough money to move. Neighbors thought that arrangement was strange and that the mother was crazy for making sacrifices for a boy who would never amount to anything anyway. Johnson wrote in his autobiography, "Succeeding Against the Odds." Although the nation was in the middle of the Great Depression and unemployment in Chicago was high, in July 1933, when he was 15, Johnson moved to Chicago with his mother. By agreement, his stepfather stayed in Arkansas. Gertrude soon found a job in the garment industry. By late 1933, Johnson's stepfather joined him. Since his stepfather was unable to find a job and his mother lost her job at the factory from 1934 to 1936, the family lived on public assistance. So as you see, this brother went through a lot. He struggled. You understand what I'm saying? His mother, his mother still believed in him even when everybody else didn't believe in him. You understand what I'm saying? So for you brothers and sisters at home and people telling you that you can't do it and you can't be nothing, you can defeat the odds, man. You understand what I'm saying? And one day you could write a book similar to Succeeding Against the Odds. You understand what I'm saying? The September Johnson entered Wendell Phillips, a virtually all-black high school, by accident. He skipped the 9th grade and started school in the 10th with intentions of becoming a journalist. Later on, he edited the school newspaper, the Philly Site, Phillipsite, and was sales manager of the year book, the Red and Black presiding officer of the student council, leader of the student forum in the French club, and junior and senior class president. He began to frequent the 58th Street branch of the Chicago Public Library, and read widely in black history and literature, including works of W. E. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington and the poetry of Langston Hughes. He also studied self-improvement books, such as those by Dale Carnegie and that would be Carnegie. Johnson wrote faith, self-confidence, and a positive mental attitude. These three were the basic messages of the self-help books that changed my life. When he began to speak out more in class, he soon awed his classmates. After Wendell Phillips High School burned down, the students transferred to a newly constructed facility named Jean Baptist Pointe de Sable, and that would be Dusable. Johnson's classmates at the two schools included singers Nat King Cole and Dorothy Dongan, Dongan, comedian Red Fox, and entrepreneur Dempsey Travers. Near consignment time, persuaded by his white civic teacher, Mary Herrick, he changed his name from Johnny to John, picked a middle name out of the air, and from then on was known as John Harold Johnson. He graduated from DuSable in 1936 at the school's consignment on June 11. Johnson was the only student chosen to speak and gave an impressive talk on Builders of a New World. The Chicago Defender pointed a notice of his impending speech, giving Johnson his first press coverage. Johnson graduated with a fistful of honors and a $200 scholarship in the University of Chicago. He said in his autobiography, Johnson was asked to speak at a routine Urban League luncheon for outstanding high school students, also held in 1936. Legendary business leader Harry H. Pace, one of Johnson's heroes, president of Supreme Life Assurance Company and head of the New York-based Pace and Handy Music Company, was the main speaker. After Pace's speech, Johnson complimented him on his remarks. In turn, Pace complimented Johnson on the good reports he had heard about his high school performance. When Pace learned that Johnson needed a part-time job to help finance his college education, he offered Johnson work in his company. Johnson wrote that the meeting with Pace changed and defined his life. 18-year-old Johnson reported to Pace's office on September 1st, 1936, to begin a part-time job for $25 a month while attending the University of Chicago part-time. He benefited from his experiences with the company executives, who, in addition to Pace, included journalist and business manager Truman K. Gibson, attorney Earl B. Dickinson, and physician Median O. Boesfield. When Johnson drove Pace to the bank each day, he used the time to question Pace about business and success. Not a week goes by that I don't recall and use some lessons that I learned from him and other Supreme executives, Johnson wrote. For a few months, Johnson was assistant editor of The Guardian, the company's monthly newspaper. Pace was the paper's editor in 1939. Johnson was promoted to editor, which placed the ambitious young man in a strategic position. Although Johnson intended to study for a law degree, he founded Supreme Life Insurance Company, so exciting that he dropped out of college to work full time. Beginning his publishing venture. The world events of that era set the stage for the beginning of Johnson's publishing venture. A new level of black consciousness arose. Pace gave him the task of reading magazines and newspapers and preparing a digest of events in the black world, an assignment that changed Johnson's life. He was determined to begin a publication to pass on the public information he had garnered for Pace. Johnson set up an office in 1942 in the corner of Earl Dickinson's Law Library in the Supreme Building and began the Negro Digest Publishing Company. He wrote letters to policyholders of Supreme Life, offering the charter subscriptions for $2 each. On Sunday, November 1st, 1942, his new publication, Negro Digest, was officially published. It was similar to the same in format to Reader's Digest, but different in that Negro Digest published complete reproductions of articles from the white and black press. Johnson described his reaction in his autobiography. When I held the first copy of the magazine in my hand, I had a feeling of relief, exhilaration, and fear. I have released the true potential of the magazine until the moment, and I was overwhelmed by the idea that the life and death of the 68-page baby was in my hands. Johnson distributed 3,000 copies of the magazine to his prepared subscribers, but needed to sell the remaining 2,000 to pay his bills. He negotiated with Charles Levy Circulating Company, Chicago's biggest magazine distributor. It was finally able to obtain Levi's financial backing. He also broadened the journal's distribution by pushing it in places neglected by major distributors. These included mom and pop outlets, black-owned distributors such as Chicago's National News Company, a drugstore chain in Atlanta, and a site in Philadelphia and Los Angeles. He made a profit on the first issue. Otherwise, he said in his autobiography, there would have been no second issue. Until 1944, in his full-time secretary with the magazine's only 2 employees, he disguised this fact by listing the names of relatives on the masthead. As the magazine grew in popularity, Johnson included a regular feature, "If I Were a Negro," and posed the question to major figures like Pearl Buck, Orson Welles, Edward G. Robinson, and Marshall Field. After he persuaded Eleanor Roosevelt to write the column for one issue, the cover story in October 1943, the circulation jumped almost overnight from 50,000 to 100,000. "We never looked back," wrote Johnson. "I was making so much money that I didn't know what to do with it." In late 1943, Johnson bought his first building. He also bought a 3-story apartment home for himself and his wife with space for his mother and stepfather. He expanded his staff and hired his mother, who remained on the staff until she died in 1977. Negro Digest grew, setting new records for black magazines. Johnson said that he didn't start a business to get rich. "I started a business to provide a service to improve myself economically." Now that the future of the Negro Digest was assured, Johnson turned attention to a new venture, the founding of Ebony magazine on November 1st, 1945, and to publishing the company's first book, The Best of Negro Humor, which Johnson edited. Johnson knew that black people wanted to see themselves in pictures. He also knew that blacks at the time in particular needed to see positive images of their race. According to the November 1995 issue of Ebony, published during its 15-year celebration, Ebony began the mirror of the struggle of rights activists to desegregate rail and bus transportation, lunch counters, public schools, hotels, and motels. After considering several names for the new journal, Johnson's wife, Eunice Johnson, suggests Ebony as the title. It means fine black African wood. She said in Johnson's autobiography, John Johnson added, "The names means a tree and hard, heavy, fine black wood that the tree yields, and the ambience and mystique surrounding the tree in the color." The first run of Ebony, 25,000 copies, sold out in a few hours, and Johnson immediately printed the number again. The journal quickly moved ahead of Negro Digest and became the most widely circulated black journal in America. Yet Negro Digest subsided Ebony. No advertisers were used at first to make a profit. However, he had to look for advertisers and was able to secure contracts from major white companies such as the makers of Zenith televisions, Swift Packet Company, Armour Foods, Quaker Oats, Elegant Watch, and the makers of Chesterfield and Old Gold cigarettes. By then, Ebony was in competition with another black magazine, Our World. When the later magazine went into bankruptcy, Johnson bought it for $14,000. He hired one of Our World's staff photographers, Monique Sleet Jr., later still with Ebony. Sleet became the first black photographer to win a Pulitzer prize for the well-publicized touching photograph of Coretta Scott King, the children at Martin Luther King's Jr. funeral, and retelling the 50-year history of Ebony. In the November 1995 issue, Johnson said, "We want to give blacks a new sense of somebodyness, a new sense of self-respect. We wanted to tell them who they were, what they could do. We believed then and we believe now that blacks need a positive images to fulfill their potentials." Johnson hired other black talent around 1948 and 1949 as writers. They included Era Bill Thompson, Edward T. Clayton, Roy Oatley, and Doris Sanders. By then, There were close to 100 full-time employees and over 4,000 independent distributors. So as you see, John Johnson, who was the founder of Ebony's Magazines, who was a black entrepreneur, who struggled early on in life, who dropped out of college, you understand what I'm saying? And did everything that he imagined of doing. He was a big-time donator, you know what I'm saying? He gave to charity, he believed in black people, and he helped black people. You understand what I'm saying? So this is what I'm saying to all the brothers and sisters at home. You really don't need college. If you want to go to college, go to college. You understand what I'm saying? But listen, believe in you. Believe in you and believe in your people, and let's rise to the top. And if you like what was talked about today, you already know you can subscribe to Promise Drew, like, share, and look, man, salute to John Johnson, RIP. We appreciate you, and peace.